What is up, guys? Welcome back to Monday Mornings with Doyeon, where we talk about all kinds of issues around the world. Today on the channel, we're going to be a little scientific. What I want to introduce to you guys is the Huntington's Disease. The Huntington's Disease is a genetic disorder that causes nerve cells in the brain to break down, which leads to cognitive decline and psychiatric problems. Eventually, the person dies. Well, you guys might be wondering why I'm even talking about this. Recently, I realized that not many people were aware of this genetic disease. Because I sympathize with these people, I want to support them in any way possible. I felt like informing you guys listening to my podcast would be one way to help them. So, getting back onto the topic, let's talk more about the general and basic information about the Huntington's disease. Well, this genetic disorder affects the patient's muscles and certain areas of the brain. That's why it becomes extremely difficult for these people to move around. In young children, many have contracted and rigid muscles. Adults can experience tremors and seizures. It's not that difficult to spot a person with Huntington's disease. From young children to old seniors, people of all age groups are exposed to this disease. People with this before the age of 20 have juvenile Huntington's disease and can be somewhat different from the disorder a person in their 30s or 40s has. As mentioned earlier, this is a lethal disease. In the end, most people end up dying. Why this disease is not well known is because it is inherited from the parents, and there is no way of getting the Huntington's disease throughout life. Every child has a 50-50 chance of inheriting the gene, as the gene for the disease is a dominant trait. This is why it can be considered as an autosomal dominant inheritance, as a child only needs one copy of the defective gene to develop the disorder. If we take a scientific approach to this, we can further understand why and how this disease happens in a person's genes. Because I'm obviously not an expert at genetics, I did some research on Mayo Clinic and the National Center for Biotechnology Information. First off, a person has the disease when the HD gene, mapped into chromosome 4, has a mutation. This mutation is caused by duplication, as the three-letter codon CAG is repeated a few times towards the beginning of this gene. This isn't really supposed to happen. You guys might be wondering how in the world these people know that they have the genetic disease if the symptoms do not appear until later in life. Well, if any of their family members had been diagnosed with Huntington's disease, it's probably the safest decision to go to the doctor and go through examination. The test can include neurological and psychiatric examination, genetic testing, and predictive genetic tests. After the person goes through these steps, they are able to know if they have the Huntington's disease in their gene or not. Even if they are diagnosed with the disease, there are still medications that can lessen symptoms and make the patients live longer. Still, it's tough on the patient and his or her family if the Huntington's disease exists. Because symptoms can include problems of movement and basic tasks, a person has to constantly stick with the patient and help them out. This can be extremely stressful towards the family, as it would be a lot of work and care. In other words, the patient needs as much attention as a newborn baby. Well, that's it for the podcast today. I hope I was able to inform you guys more about the Huntington's disease. Thanks for tuning in today, and I'll be back with new things next week. Bye bye.